Okay, first things first. My allergies have been really bad in the last few days, and I'm coughing a lot. So if you see that it's getting really choppy, it's basically trying to break up coughing fits, so you don't have to see all that. And anyway, moving on to the main topic. Yeah, I like Madden. Sorry, I do acknowledge that the game it's suffered in the last decade or so. It hasn't done anything really innovative or, well, you get the idea. And yeah, I do get those complaints. And no, I don't do Ultimate Team. I don't do the microtransactions. I don't do the loot boxes. And you shouldn't either. Those things need to be relegated. Uh, yeah. Anyway, basically, I had a previous version of Madden for my PlayStation 3. And then late last year, my PS3 started to sound like a lawnmower. So I knew I needed to get a new console at some point. And if you recall, this past holiday season, I got an Xbox One S, and so I said, okay, well, if I need to get a new version of Madden, I'm going to get the newest one when it comes out, rather than, buy an old version and try to update it that way. Just save a little bit of time. So that's kind of why I purchased that. But I'm going to be focusing primarily on the face of the franchise QB1 mode in this. I'll get into some overall bits on the game later when at the end of this video. I'll sum this up pretty well. So basically, the face of the franchise, or QB1, I know it's had a couple of different names in the past. Like one, it was called Long Shot. I forget the original one that was used though. And basically, you're this highly recruited high school quarterback, and it's National Signing Day, so you're making your choice. And you're making your choice from one of 10 different colleges, which is weird because usually when you're doing the national or any type of commitment thing where you're not a commitment ceremony, but you get the idea, commitment announcement to a university, you're choosing. Yeah, you've narrowed it down to like maybe 3 or 4. Usually 3, as most I've seen. So like you're up to about your top 3 choices. You're not really picking from 10. There's not like these giant rows of hats. It's usually just, like I said, 3. And then you make your selection and everyone cheers, unless you chose the University of Alabama, at which point your mother is very disappointed in you.
LSU Tigers, #1.
Okay, so basically your 10 college choices are the University of Southern California, Oregon, Florida State University, Louisiana State University, Oklahoma, Miami, Texas, Clemson, and then the last one is Texas Tech. And it's like, one of these things is not like the others in terms of program prestige and national championships won. And yeah, I get it. Pat Mahomes went to Texas Tech, so they're probably trying to placate him a little bit. But it's still kind of odd that you're scrolling through all of these programs that have either played or won national championships, and you've had one that, last won a conference championship in 1995, I want to say, and it was the Southwest Conference, which no longer exists. So yeah. Anyway. Basically, like I said, you're this highly touted quarterback recruit, and you're making your selection. And in my case, I chose the University of Oregon. And at this point, you make your selection, you go to the school, and everything's fine. And then suddenly you hear, oh, the #1 recruit in your position has decommitted, and now he's coming to Oregon, so he's going to get the starting job. And then you're like, no, I'm going to get the starting job. And then it jumps ahead 4 years. Like, you're not given the option to try to transfer out. You're not given the option to try to compete for the starting job. It just jumps ahead 4 years. And it's now that you're in the college football playoff, the semifinals. And the storyline is that the starting quarterback has gotten hurt, and now you have to come in and try to win the national championship. And the cast from Good Morning Football, which is a show on the NFL Network that runs, astonishingly enough, in the morning. They're talking about it. One of the guys on there is named Pete Schrager. He has high hopes for you, and Nate Burleson doesn't. And that means a lot coming from the football player whose career ended because he was trying to stop his pizza from sliding off the passenger side seat of his car. So, yeah. So, yeah, you're it's at this point that you actually get to input your name. You're kind of nameless throughout everything, and then you get to input your name at this. And I chose the name Golgal Sparrowcat for this very reason. Gold Dust, Galloway, and Sparrow. You get it? Okay. So anyway, you go, and the idea is you're supposed to play through the semifinal, the college football playoff semifinal, and then the finals, win the national championship, and that's going to help improve your draft stock. Except, I didn't do that. We lost the semifinals in overtime. I mean, I played well. I had like 3 interceptions, unfortunately. It's like, but I got it. I led the team on a comeback and forced overtime, so I at least had a decent enough rating going into that. Now, normally in this scenario, if you're going to do something like that, you then go to something called the Senior Bowl, because that way you can showcase your talents before more scouts. You play in, it's an exhibition game, but you play in it and you run a more pro football style system so that they can see if you can adjust to the pro game well. Well, no, in this case, they cut out the Senior Bowl and they go straight into the Combine. And you go through a bunch of the passing drills of the Combine where you're going through and you're throwing the receivers, but you have to hit them in these hot spots. And this is where there was a major problem with some of the game, because sometimes my receivers are catching the ball outside of the hot spot and they're entering it, and that counts. But if they catch the ball in the middle of the hot spot and they exit it, that somehow doesn't. Okay, that's just kind of confusing. But I went through that. I did pretty well at that, but my character was not involved. Golgal Sparrowcat was not invited to the NFL draft, and proceeded to fall all the way to the 7th round to the Cincinnati Bengals. And I guess I should point out that this storyline is sort of paralleling the story of a quarterback named Cardale Jones.
Cardale Jones.
Okay, so Cardale Jones was this quarterback for Ohio State University. He was actually the 3rd string quarterback on the team, and then the starting quarterback, Braxton Miller, got injured going into the season, and this was the first year of the college football playoffs. I think it was 2013 to 14, somewhere in there. The starting quarterback, Braxton Miller, got hurt. It was a season-ending injury. The backup, JT Barrett, comes in. He plays all the games up till the University of Michigan game. He gets injured. He's out for the season. Cardale Jones had to come in and play the Big Ten championship game. They then made it to the college football playoff. He had to play Alabama in that. They won that, and then they faced Oregon in the finals. And he had the chance to go pro after that, and a lot of people said he should go pro now. He opted to stay an extra year in school where he didn't actually play, and the next year he barely got drafted by the Buffalo Bills, and last I heard he was a backup quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers. So this is kind of the path they decided to set you on. I was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the 7th round. That's Golgal Sparrowcat again. And he is, like I said, I'm basically given the starting job, even though, one, I'm a 7th round draft pick. You really, really would not do that, especially when you have a relatively experienced quarterback in Andy Dalton, who he's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's been more than serviceable for numerous years. But I'm given the starting job in the preseason, and I've got my preseason notes in here, and they're giving you all these goals. You go through training camp, and you're running the plays and everything, and then in the games, you're given these goals that you have to meet for the time that you play. The first game, you play only the first quarter, and you have to meet these certain goals. You have a second game, you play the first half. The third game, you play 3 quarters, and then the fourth game, you play the first quarter again. Of all the goals that they assigned me, I only met 1. I didn't get. It's like we won the games. I played reasonably well enough. I just didn't meet any of the goals. So much so that after the third game, they said they're talking about trying to release me. They're talking about they might release me. And I had to lobby to give me one more chance. So like, okay, you get one more chance. And so I desperately tried to meet these goals that they assigned me in this one game, in the last game of the preseason. So much so that I burned all the team's timeouts in the first quarter trying to make sure I got to them. And I only got, like I said, I only got 1 of these goals. But yet somehow this was enough to get me the starting job. Also, when you play your semifinal game, they introduced this plot line of there's a sick teenage girl who's a big fan of yours, and well, because you're at the school basically, and you kind of befriend her, and you make this promise. There's a bunch of promises that you make to her, and going into the first season of the game, it's like you need to break a rookie record, so you need to throw 4 touchdowns or throw for 400 yards, and I did neither of that, but my team won the game, and I led a game-winning drive, and that seemed to suffice. And then we never heard from the sick girl again, so I guess she died.
Good friends are there when you need them. And look who's got the best. Spend action-packed time with Tracy, Gordo, Phoebe, and that boy genius, IQ. Cheer on the battle against Scum with the entire gang and that mischief-making hero himself,
James Bond, weekday mornings at 8:30 on Fox 19's Kids Club.
Okay, so from that point on, there's not really too much else to talk about in terms of the overall story, except, you go through the season, you get trash talk from your division opponents. I got trash talk by Tom Brady. You have to deal with your various offensive teammates who who want the ball. So my running backs need the ball, my wide receivers need the ball, my tight end needs the ball. You try to do enough to placate all of them as best you can, and it goes through pretty well. I like I said, I'm not being braggadocial. I probably am not that good in terms of anything. I didn't go through the season undefeated. In fact, I think I lost, I want to say 3 or 4 games. I know 2 noteworthy ones I lost to. I lost to the Rams in London in overtime, and then I lost to the Patriots in the regular season by about 10 points. But I didn't have to face either of them in the playoffs because the Patriots lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, and then faced the Chiefs in the divisional round of the playoffs, and then I went to faced the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC Championship game, and then I faced the Carolina Panthers in the Super Bowl. And I went through that, won that, got the MVP and everything. And we go into the offseason and into the draft, and I'm watching the little draft thing go by as it's simulating. I'm looking that we have these team needs, and they don't draft anything to fulfill those team needs. And it's like, well, if we need those players, why aren't we drafting them? We're not getting them. We didn't get them through free agency. The free agency period's over, so we should be drafting them at this point. And I don't understand that. Like, I get that it's a player story, so I shouldn't have control over the draft. But you think at least the computer would program in draft team needs. It kind of confused me. And at that point, I kind of dropped the face of the franchise mode and just switched over to an ordinary franchise mode where I had a bit more control over that sort of thing. And that really ends that bit. And so, going a little bit more into overall gameplay stuff and that those types of mechanics. I mean, the fact that Madden has been pretty glitch-ridden for quite some time. I mean, some of that stuff it becomes the territory nowadays. It's not that surprising anymore. I mean, players phasing through each other sometimes. Weird calls because it's like, I didn't have any of the bits like if you remember a few years ago we had the random size changing players who were running down the field and shrinking and stuff like that. I didn't have any of that type of problem, thankfully. Sometimes too, it's you get these bits where here's the thing with pass catching, and sometimes it's like I throw the ball and I can clearly see it's being caught. It's well in bounds. The player goes to the ground. The ball does not come out or anything like that, but they're still calling it incomplete, and I don't understand how that is happening at all. I guess they're trying to get me to challenge the play, but I don't think I've ever done that yet. So is there anything else here? Oh yeah, I do think on a complimentary side, this is probably the best defensive game plans that they've had in a Madden for a long time. I've never been good at Madden on defense, and this was probably the best that I've been at it. So I've done really well at that bit. Also, there's been talk about this halftime show. In fact, I watched Angry Joe's little video about that, and he said he tried the halftime show and they didn't do anything. Well, one thing, he was playing the Pro Bowl. They're not going to do a halftime show during the Pro, because the whole point is they show highlights from the other game and they do score reports from around the country. And, well, for one thing, the Pro Bowl is the only game being played that weekend, and that's true for the exhibition schedule as well. If you just pick a random exhibition game to play, and you're not doing a season or a franchise or the face of the franchise or anything like that, yeah, they don't do coverage of that stuff. There's nothing for them to cover. So, you can only get that in the franchise mode and the face of the franchise mode. So that's how that really works out. I guess and some other things, like I said before, the face of the franchise mode definitely needs to be deeper. Like when that other recruit comes to your school, you should be given the option to either transfer or compete for the starting job. You should be going through the whole 4-year plan. I mean, that's what normally happens in college. Like if you're trying to simulate that experience, fine. Or if you want to do the whole, long shot Cinderella. I mean, again, this is called face of the franchise, not long shot, not Cinderella's story. So you should be, in a position where you're supposed to become the face of a franchise. You shouldn't be doing that as the backup who has to be called in because the star guy gets hurt. That's not how that really works. Like I said before, alongside the combine, we should, again, if you're going to work that type of angle, this Cinderella story long shot angle, you should be playing in the Senior Bowl because that will help improve your draft stock. And like I said, I went over the parameters of the Senior Bowl in there. And again, the draft thing for the face of the franchise. Like I said, I understand that it's a player, and so I shouldn't be allowed to make draft picks. That's fine. But again, draft to fulfill the team needs if that's how this is going to work out. Because they should, exactly, instead we had 6 draft picks and we drafted 3 wide receivers. We had plenty of wide receivers. We didn't need wide receivers. Wide receiver was not one of those things needed. It was like we needed linemen and a punter. I mean, I didn't expect them to draft a punter, but still, that's a bone simple thing that you can fix. And seriously, what happened to that sick girl? She vanished. I never heard from her again. I mean, do I have to play 5 years and retire? Well, anyway, overall though, I know this game has been getting raked over the coals. People say, oh, it's terrible, and certain of the mainstream outlets are calling this one of the best Maddens ever. It's not that. There are some glaring problems. But I don't think and I do understand some of the complaints. And like I said, the Ultimate Team, the microtransaction stuff, yeah, avoid that like the plague. You shouldn't be dealing with that stuff. But this game's serviceable. It's not that terrible. I'm giving Madden NFL 20 a C. Okay. That was a little tougher than I thought it was going to be. Video game expert I'm not, but I hope that this worked well for you. Again, originally this was going to be the review slot for the movie My Spy, and then that got pushed back to early 2020. So, yeah. Like I said, My Spy, and anyway, next video after this is going to be the NXT UK Takeover Cardiff. That'll be up Saturday night, Sunday morning, somewhere in there. And then after that, it's going to be, I'll put the movie itinerary in with this too. But the next movie review is going to be It Chapter 2, obviously. And then the random trade review on Kraven's Last Hunt. See you all next time. Hey guys. Remember, you can help support the channel at patreon.com/SleepyTimeForCat Productions. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to ring that notification bell.